All right, let's go have a chat about Dr. Oziel, or who I refer to as Dr.
Good.
Step into my office. Gotta loosen up these lips because I have a lot to tell you. Good old Dr. Oziel, he gets himself into quite a bit of trouble. But before we get into all the trouble he gets himself into, let's review some of the testimony from him being on the stand. As I explained in the last video, there is all sorts of dirt that shows up on him. It's covered with lies, affairs, multiple affairs, vacations. He's not a doctor you want giving you advice. He is a psychiatrist for Eric mainly, although he started out working with the Menendez boys' parents first, Kitty and Jose, and then started working with Eric and Lyle, and then started seeing, and I guess maybe only Eric was really seeing him at this point, and then Lyle kind of came in for the last 2 sessions they had with him, but that's who he is. In my opinion, he is prosecution's star witness. And why? Well, because he is the professional that through very mucky, muddy means got a confession from Eric. And I will explain more about that. So he described Eric as being depressed, and that Eric was having bad dreams about his parents being killed and was having suicidal thoughts because of this. And he explained that during the session, Eric told him that it was him and his brother Lyle who had killed their parents, because at this point, police had no idea who it was. Now, Dr. Oziel alleges that Eric told him that he had been watching a movie on the BBC, and it was a movie about some kids who killed their parents and how similar their relationship was with their father as these boys, the Menendez brothers, their relationship was to their own father. Once Eric had watched this, he decided, according to Dr. Oziel, he decided to call in Lyle and tell him about this program or this movie he had just watched. And that they casually, according to Dr. Oziel, that they casually talked about how it would be if the person who was dominating and negative and a controlling person wasn't there anymore. And that progressed into a discussion about killing their own father, Jose, and then their parents, all allegedly according to Dr. Oziel. Now, Dr. Oziel claims that Eric's reasoning for killing his parents was because his father was completely dominating and controlling and impossible to please, and that he had perfectionist standards, which we all know no one can meet up to. And he continued with the fact that he controlled their lives in an extreme way, and even their mother, Kitty, was controlled by Mr. Menendez. Oziel said Eric recounted an example of how difficult his father was, in which Jose had nearly disinherited them from his will. Now, I think this is where prosecution probably gets their idea of the fact that they killed their parents for money. Dr. Oziel claims that Eric said they decided to kill their mother because she would be a witness and she was already suicidal and there was no way she was going to be able to live through such an ordeal. In Dr. Oziel's claims, he said that they felt they were doing Kitty, their mother, a favor by killing her too. Dr. Oziel further claims that the boys came up with this idea 1 week prior to murdering their parents, and that Eric was the one who went into the room and killed their father, and that Lyle went in after to finish the job of killing their mother. According to Dr. Oziel, the mother didn't die right away, so they left the room to reload their shotguns. Lyle came back and finished killing his mother because she was moaning and trying to crawl. He went on to explain that they picked up the shotgun shells, changed their clothes, and disposed of the shells and the clothing in a dumpster. And then Eric placed the shotguns 250 feet down the side of a hill and kind of covered them up a bit, but they were still relatively exposed, and that they then left to this wine tasting event to create an alibi. Now, I want to step back a bit because prosecution brought up some criminal trouble that the boys had got themselves into prior to this. Apparently, they were involved in some crimes, some theft crimes in Calabasas, California, and that it was actually Mr. Menendez who turned them in to the police. The reason why we hear this story is because Dr. Oziel is telling this story about how controlling and perfectionistic the father is. So they are part of this theft crime in Calabasas, and their father, Jose, turned them into the police. Then Mr. Menendez taunted the boys and told them how stupid they were for doing it in ways that left the police all sorts of clues as to how it had been done. Oziel claims that Lyle and Eric discussed with him they felt if it had not been for their father to have turned them in, that the police wouldn't have been able to connect them to those crimes. Allegedly, according to Dr. Oziel. Now, my comments on this defense has been using this defense about how the father did not want the outside world to have this vision or view of the Menendez family and that they were imperfect in any way. So this is why there was so many problems, whatever. However, I feel that if this is true about Mr. Menendez turning the boys into the police, this kind of contradicts that, and why prosecution didn't jump on that opportunity and really hammer it home to be like, hey, you guys are saying that he didn't want bad light shown on them, but here we have an example of him himself putting that light on his family. So after this confession, Dr. Oziel said he called Lyle on the phone and asked him to come to the office because Eric had just confessed everything to him, and so Lyle went ahead and went to the office to talk with them. Now, Dr. Oziel stated that he felt Lyle went in to the office and was upset with Eric for telling Dr. Oziel. So that session was October 31st, Halloween. They had another session with Dr. Oziel on November 2nd, I believe. And this was a 3-hour-long session, 3.5-hour-long session. Yes, most sessions are usually 45 minutes. Dr. Oziel in this session told the brothers that he had placed his notes about the last session into a security deposit box, like 3 separate security deposit boxes, then gave the key to his attorney to tell him like, hey, I need you to go open these security deposit boxes in case I end up coming up missing under mysterious circumstances. Dr. Oziel told the court this quite interesting story, so I want you to hear it directly from him. So let's take a look at that.
Did Lyle Menendez respond to you after you said that you had felt threatened after October the 31st?
Yes, he did.
And what did he say to you about that?
Well, he laughed and he said that I should have felt threatened because immediately after the session, he and Eric had sat in Eric's new Jeep, and the first statement that Lyle had made to Eric when he got into the Jeep was, "Now how do we kill Oziel?" And he continued to relate that Eric said in this course of this conversation that he wasn't up to killing anybody else right now, and that if Lyle wanted to kill me, that he should go ahead and kill me.
All right, why don't you rephrase the question so you clarify exactly what you're asking.
Dr. Oziel, I believe you indicated that after you explained the fact of the safety deposit boxes and what measures you had taken, that Lyle indicated to you that you should have felt threatened because he and his brother had gone to the Jeep after the October 31st session and had discussed killing you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what he related.
What did Lyle Menendez tell you that Eric had told him when they're in the Jeep?
Okay. Lyle Menendez told me that Eric had said that he was not up to killing anybody else right now, and that if Lyle wanted to kill me, that Lyle should go ahead and kill me.
Now, Lyle told you this about a conversation that had taken place between himself and his brother about 2 days before, correct?
That's correct.
And he told this to you in the presence of his brother, Eric Menendez. Is that correct?
Yes, he did.
Okay. What next happened?
What happened next is that Eric and Lyle were laughing in the office, both of them, and
And
Lyle said that, I'm sorry.
okay, and then did Lyle relate to you further any conversations that he and his brother had had on the 31st?
Yes, he did.
And what did he tell you about what they had talked about on the 31st after seeing you?
We said that they began laughing because they were sitting in the Jeep and looking back up to the office that I was located in, and they were imagining me looking down on the Jeep and seeing them having this discussion and knowing very well that they were planning to kill me, and they were laughing at how frightened I must have been, realizing that they were sitting in the Jeep talking about planning to kill me.
Now, just to clarify, when you say that they were laughing on October 31st in the Jeep, or they were laughing in relating to you what had occurred on the 31st?
No, I'm sorry. Lyle never said, no one ever said that they were laughing when they were in the Jeep until after they began, at the point at which they were sitting in the Jeep and began looking up and imagining me looking down and realizing that they were talking about how to kill me, that's the point at which they were laughing. But he didn't say they were laughing or relate that they were laughing before that. In the office, when it was being relayed to me on November 2nd, they were again laughing.
Now, after they
were laughing.
All right, after it was related to you, what had occurred, did Lyle Menendez give you an explanation for why this hadn't occurred? That they had abandoned this idea?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
He said that it wouldn't look too good if I disappeared too soon, because if I did, it might begin to cast an unwelcome light on them, that if the Menendez's therapist disappeared soon, and might not be a good idea. And then after that, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then after that, did Lyle turn to you and say something?
Yes, he did.
Did he ask you a question?
Yes, he did.
What did he ask you?
He asked me if I was frightened.
And what did you respond?
About what he had just told me. And I said that I really didn't choose to live in fear ordinarily. That wasn't how I really chose to live my life.
And what did he respond to you when you said that you did not choose to live your life in fear?
He said, neither did my father.
When I watched this, I actually had to hit pause and just laugh. And I know that sounds like I'm crazy, but observing this from a non-emotional point of view, I totally can see why the boys said these things. And honestly, if something like this was to happen in my life, my sense of humor is very similar, and I would be screwed in court, because the person would be saying exactly all of this stuff that I said, which I didn't mean. It was just jokes, just something I said just to make a joke, to make things funny, to relieve some tension or get a quick laugh. So I would definitely be getting screwed in court with something like this. Being a party not involved in this case, I have the ability to look at this with no emotion attached to it. I truly feel that Lyle and Eric were just kidding with him. And the fact that Dr. Oziel had already told the boys that he had saved all those session notes in a security deposit box and placed them under lock and key, and gave that key to his attorney, signed whatever paperwork he needed to give his attorney to open those boxes. I see this as just, they're clearly just joking around with him. Oziel went on to claim that Lyle was upset with Eric for telling Oziel about the murders, and that through talking, Lyle allegedly kept being threatening and unhappy, Oziel's words, not mine, and that Eric then bolted out of the room. Lyle then left the session to find Eric, leaving Oziel behind. Now, remember that this particular session was in November, so of course it gets darker in the winter earlier. So at this point it's dark because, well, they've been in the session for over 3.5 hours. It was Dr. Oziel's idea that he should then follow Lyle out of the building, yes, in the dark, at night, by himself, out to the Jeep Eric was waiting in. To which Oziel was continuously trying to get Lyle to go back into the building to continue the session, but that Lyle said he wanted to go talk to his little brother before he decided to go back in and continue the session. Dr. Oziel then claimed, quote, that was extremely menacing, end quote, and that Lyle shook Dr. Oziel's hand and said, quote, good luck, Dr. Oziel. And Oziel then took that again as menacing and threatening. Okay, then we find out how much did Dr. Oziel bill them for this session? Well, he billed them $745 for this one session. We actually also learned that Dr. Oziel bills quite extensively. And I say that because he claimed that yes, he does bill if a person shows up to the session, of course, and even if they don't show up to the session. He bills them for the entire session. And then he also gets a hold of the client and tells them, hey, I have an opening on this day. Would you like to come in instead on that day? And they say, sure, Dr. Oziel, I would like to come in on that day. And he says, okay, I will see you then. And then he then bills again for that. So Pamela, for some reason, brought up this conversation that disproves her case. So let's take a look at that.
Menendez ever expressed to you an opinion on his part about how his father would have felt about what had happened?
Yes, he did.
Okay, could you tell us about that?
Yes, he said that he thought his father would have been proud of him for killing him.
And did he explain why he thought his father would have been proud?
Yes, first of all, he said that he knew that his father knew that he should have been killed. And he also said that he would have been proud of the good job that he did.
Did you have a discussion with Lyle Menendez in the presence of his brother Eric Menendez about the question of an inheritance?
Yes.
Okay, could you tell us what was said during that discussion, please?
I asked if they felt guilty having millions of dollars from their parents' inheritance, and Lyle laughed and said, no, but this wasn't done for the money. No, but this wasn't done for the money. And they thought that if their father was in fact was alive, that he would have continued to double his net worth on a regular basis because he was actually on the ascendancy in terms of what he was earning.
Ms. Abramson asks a lot of questions about how Oziel bills. And as such, we learned that Oziel billed the boys for going to their parents' funeral. I hope you are not wearing your best clothes right now, because it's time to spill the tea on Dr. Oziel. Through all Miss Abramson's questioning, we learned that Oziel was cheating on his wife. So not only was he cheating on his wife with Judalong, Oziel felt it was appropriate to tell her all of the information that the boys told him about killing their parents during the session with him. Say what? Yep. So there seems to be this like back and forth between defense and Oziel about how exactly Judalong found out all of this information. Because Oziel is claiming that he wasn't sure if Judalong was in the office during the sessions, but that if she was, she could not have overheard the session. And he's saying he told Judalong all this information after the session. But where exactly Judalong was, who knows? I think she was there at Oziel's office, and he's just trying to backtrack his alibi as to why he admittingly says he told Judalong the information. I do think she was probably there, and I mean, maybe she was even like within his office room that she was able to overhear this information. But he's saying he doesn't remember her there. I don't know why he wouldn't remember that, but this is his testimony. Does this sound confusing? Well, he claimed that after the session, he called multiple people, which included other healthcare professionals and the police, to ask about his rights about confidentiality and what he should do with this information because, well, he feels his life is in jeopardy because he now knows this information and because of things that they told him. He also called his wife to tell her to take the kids and get out of the home because there was a threat on his life. He then went to Judalong's home for the night. Yep, he didn't go protect his wife and his family. he went over to his mistress's house that night to protect her. His explanation on why he decided to do that was because he felt that him being away from his family would keep the brothers away from his family, so then he would then be protecting his family. Yeah, okay, so then what, you're putting Judah Long's life in danger for no reason? Oh, it gets deeper than that. He says, no, that wasn't his intention either. We all know why he went to Judah Long's home, to be with her and not to a hotel to be by himself. We weren't born yesterday, Dr. Oziel. And yes, he did say he had enough money to stay in a hotel, but that's not what he chose to do. And we all know why. So he claimed it was at this point that he told Judah Long everything the brothers had told him during the session, and that is why her life was in danger as well. Doesn't make sense, right? Those dots don't even connect. But this is his testimony. Never mind the fact that the brothers had no idea who Judah Long was, or that she was Dr. Oziel's mistress, nonetheless, that they would even know where she lived. He explained that he thought the brothers were going to go to his house, his own personal house, and look through his boxes that he kept in his closet in his bedroom and find the confidentiality agreements that he had signed from various people, Judah Long being one of these people, and also find these explicit letters that Judah Long wrote to him, amongst other women's explicit letters that they wrote to him. Sadly, though, yes, he was cheating on his wife multiple times in the past, and of course in the present with Judah Long. Oh, you guys didn't know this fine cat here was a ladies' man, did you? So they were going to find all these letters, find the confidentiality agreements, make all the connections, search through this box, dig out hers, and then go, I know where Dr. Oziel's at. Let's head over to Judah Long's house and kill both of them. During this time of extreme or grave fright for his life, he continued to go to work during the day and then back to Judah Long's house at night. Never mind the fact that they could be following him straight on over to Judah Long's home, or as he claims, they're going to go through all his stuff and make all these connections and go kill both of them. Are you choking right now? I am, because that's a lot of bullshit being shoved down our throats. So anyway, he explained the reason why he had his mistress signing this confidentiality agreement, and the explanation was that he has people who are going to be in his office or near his files sign these agreements, so that way they do not go out and spill this information that they come across to the world about clients that he has. Never mind the fact that he did not have his secretary sign one of these agreements, nor did he have the housekeeper who was living in his home for 5 years sign one of these agreements. Like, clearly she had a higher chance of being around those boxes in the closet than Judah Long would have. I know this all sounds like as tangled as a spider web or as made up as a Disney fairy tale, but these are all his claims. So funny thing is, Oziel's wife is actually a therapist and knew that he was working with the Menendez brothers, but as I took it, he decided not to go to his wife to confide in her. He went to his girlfriend, his mistress, to confide all this information about the session and admission of the murders to her. Miss Abramson asked Oziel to tell the court all the reasons why he told Judah Long this information, because there were several reasons. However, court stopped at this point so he could talk to his attorney. So after returning, he explained he tried to break it off with Judah Long Smith before this ever happened, but that she wouldn't go away. Miss Abramson asked Dr. Oziel if he believed Judah Long Smith was mentally stable. And you know what his answer was? No. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he felt it was a good idea to go tell this mentally unstable person, hey, your life's in danger. Like, what did he expect her to do? So, of course, she went and called the police and told them everything he told her, and that her life was in danger and everything else. So the police said, oh, Okay, that's who killed Mr. and Mrs. Menendez. Okay, how about we put a wire on you and you go talk to Dr. Oziel and we'll get an admission out of him. So she said, okay. And so she wore a wire and the cops went and hid in a closet in her house and they recorded some conversations with Dr. Oziel and Judalong. And they played the tapes in the courtroom and you could hear Dr. Oziel saying that he was upset with her for going and telling the police the information he had shared with her. Duh, what did you think she was going to do? So he then claimed that the brothers said they were going on vacation to Hawaii, but that a family member of the Menendez brothers told Oziel that they were not going to Hawaii. And so he basically freaked out at this point. And so him and his wife decided we should go to Big Five and buy 3 shotguns to protect ourselves. Yes, 3. Oh my, the tangle webs we weave. You want to hear more? Make sure you hit that bell icon so that way you are notified as soon as I upload the next video in this series. So with that, bye.